Hi everybody, this is Brett from Source Audio. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Hot Hand 3 Universal Wireless Effects Controller to control parameters on the Line 6 M5 Stompbox modeler. Line 6 uses a proprietary configuration for the expression inputs on their pedals, so there are a few extra steps required when setting up the Hot Hand 3 to work with Line 6 products. The first step is to configure the dip switches on the bottom of the Hot Hand 3 for the Line 6 expression input. The dip switches on the Hot Hand 3 unit can be accessed through a rectangular hole on the bottom of the unit. By default, dip switches 1 and 3 are turned on and switches 2 and 4 are turned off. In order to set up the unit for the Line 6 pedal, turn off dip switch 3. When the unit is correctly configured, switch 1 will be on and the remaining switches will be off. Next, hold down the calibrate button and plug in the DC power supply. Continue holding the calibrate button until the mode LED starts to blink. This indicates that the unit is in configuration mode. In this mode, you can select which axis of the hot hand should be sent out of the Hot Hand 3's expression output jack. The selected axis is indicated by the color of the depth and smooth knobs. Green is the x-axis, green and red is the y-axis, and red is the z-axis. The color of the mode LED indicates the sensor output mode, but I'm actually not using the sensor outputs to control the Line 6 pedal, so I'll just ignore it for now. In this example, I'll use the x-axis since it's the default setting. In this case, all of the LEDs, depth, smooth, and mode will be green. After the desired axis is selected, press and hold the calibrate button until the unit resets. It will take a few seconds. After the unit has reset, the status LED will blink, indicating that it has not connected to a hot hand ring. Turn on the hot hand ring and it should connect to the receiver. This is indicated by a solid blue status LED. Now the center position of the hot hand ring can be set by pressing the calibrate button once. Users can set their own center position according to their preferences, but for now, I'll just place my hand flat on the table and press the calibrate button to set the center position in line with the horizon. Remember that the x-axis on the hot hand can be visualized as a line pointing straight out of the nose of the ring. If this line is pointing straight into the floor, you'll get the maximum negative value. If this axis is pointing in the opposite direction, towards the ceiling, you'll get the maximum positive value. The depth and smooth knobs control the range and smoothness of the expression signal that is output from the Hot Hand 3. For now, I'll set the depth to a moderate positive position by turning it to about 2 o'clock. I'll set the smooth control at 12 o'clock for moderate smoothing. These are the settings that I found work best with the Line 6 M5. I will try some different settings for these knobs later on in the video. Now it's time to connect the Hot Hand 3 to the Line 6 M5. Be careful when selecting a cable for this connection. Most manufacturers use a TRS cable to connect an expression pedal. TRS stands for tip, ring, sleeve, referring to the 3 contacts on the plug, each of which are separated by an insulating ring. This is often also referred to as a balanced or stereo cable. Line 6 expression inputs do not use TRS cables. They use TS cables instead. TS stands for tip, sleeve, referring to the 2 contacts on the plug separated by a single insulating ring, which you can see here. This is the kind of cable you'll need to connect the Hot Hand 3 to the Line 6 pedal. The connection is simple enough. Connect the expression output jack on the Hot Hand 3 to the expression input jack on the M5. And you're ready to go. Now, select any effect on the M5 using the Effect Select knob. I'll choose a simple filter for now. Each parameter for this filter is indicated by a small bar graph on the display. Within the bar graphs, there are small notches that show the range of control that is accessible from the expression input. This is where we can see the Hot Hand 3 controlling the parameters. I'll start with a simple example. Let's say I want the hot hand to just control the filter frequency, and I want it to work over the full range of motion. The setup is simple. First, I'll pick the minimum point of motion on the ring by pointing it towards the floor. While the ring is pointed towards the floor, I can use the knob controlling frequency and turn it down to its minimum point. Now I can choose the maximum point of motion by pointing the hot hand ring towards the ceiling. After doing so, I can turn the frequency knob to assign the maximum frequency. At this point, we're done. In the minimum X position of the ring, the filter will be at its minimum frequency, and at the maximum X position of the ring, the filter will be at its maximum frequency. Here's a simple example. In this second example, I'm going to do something a little more advanced. I'll control the Q, or quality of the filter, at the same time as the cutoff frequency. I'll make it a little more interesting this time. I'll assign the minimum ring position to the maximum Q. While pointing the ring down, I'll choose a value of about 75% for my maximum Q. Now I'll assign my maximum ring position to the minimum Q value. While pointing the ring upward, I'll turn the knob to about a 25% Q setting. The result is that the frequency and Q now have an inverse relationship. As the frequency goes up, the Q goes down, and as the frequency goes down, the Q goes up. In the previous example, I set the full range of the hot hand ring to cover the full range of the filter. This may not be the most practical way to set up the hot hand in a musical context. You're most likely not going to be pointing your hand towards the ceiling or floor while playing guitar. You will likely have a much more limited range of motion. So, let's try calibrating the hot hand to an actual playing position. First, I'll set the center position of the ring by holding my picking hand in a neutral position. This is roughly the position my hand would be when the pick is hitting the strings on my guitar. With my hand held in this position, I will press the calibrate button once and wait for the mode LED to blink 3 times, indicating that the center position is set. You can see after pressing the calibrate button, now this neutral position for my hand will put the frequency of the filter in the center of the range that I defined. The smooth knob sets the sensitivity of the ring to quick motions. By turning the smooth knob all the way down, the ring will respond to every subtle motion of the ring. With the smooth knob all the way up, the ring will ignore sudden movements and instead pick up on broader gestures. It's up to you to find the optimal smooth knob setting for your playing. I generally like to start with the knob at the 12 o'clock position and go from there. One final example. Let's try decreasing the range of the filter frequency. Maybe I don't want the hot hand to change the frequency over its full range, and instead I just want it to move over the top third of the range. This is easy to change. I'll move my hand to the downward position and change the frequency control until it's about at the minimum desired value. Then I'll move my hand to the upward position and change the frequency control to the maximum desired value. Now I have a more limited range for this control. Remember that the Hot Hand 3's depth control also plays a role here. Increasing the depth will increase the range. and decreasing the depth will decrease the range. So it's my suggestion that you start with the depth control all the way at its full value, then set the desired range of the parameter, and finally decrease the depth control if needed later on. Hopefully this video will get you started controlling Line 6 effects with the Hot Hand 3. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments section below.